Yeah, we probably could. Well, welcome back. Welcome back to the basement, everyone. Joshua, Jackson. Welcome back.
Nice. Thanks for shitting on my fucking request.
I'm just kidding. Joshua and Jackson, welcome. Thank you for joining me in the basement this morning.
Yeah, morning podcast.
We're doing the day, so we're less. We have more morals.
Not high and drunk and can't function enough to do a podcast.
Ties and falls and all that stuff.
Yeah, I didn't eat like a whole pizza and drink 3 beers before.
That helps. It really brings the energy levels up. Hello, welcome to episode 43 of To Be Honest.
No. I'm Josh.
No, we're not doing it. You said you didn't want to do it, prick. Or you just wanted to be the first. Is that the idea? You want to be the first one to do it?
Gotcha, yes.
And we watched High Life. Directed by Claire Denis, French director, and written by some French people, and starring Robert Pattinson.
This is our Robert Pattinson. Robert Pattinson.
Pattinson. This is our Stan the Robert Pattinson podcast.
I'm Team Pattinson.
You can patty my butt cheeks.
And he might.
Is he English?
He's very English.
Is he?
Robert Pattinson's British, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
He hides his accent pretty well.
He does. He definitely does. Yeah, it has a pretty multi not ethnic cast, but like there's French people and there's English people and there's Americans and
multinational.
And I think that like the original captain is German. Yeah, multinational.
We don't know any borders in this world.
No, we don't.
That's the high life.
That's the high life.
That's the high life. That's what being high is all about.
Trash. Refuse that didn't fit into the system. Until someone had the bright idea of recycling us to serve science.
So I don't even know where to start with this movie. I guess like a kind of an explanation of it would be that these convicts who are on death row, as opposed to dying in prison, their life sentence is commuted to being shot out into space in this giant spaceship to explore a black hole, to see if we can harness the energy of the black hole. Turns out that there's also like a weird sexual experiment that happens on the side.
Yeah.
And then Robert Pattinson gets a daughter as a result of that, and I guess that's all I could say without spoiling it.
Where did they bring in the energy part? I missed that.
He said it in the beginning that
was that shot with the old guy on the train?
I don't remember where it was, but there was some conversation. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're right. Well, no, the old guy on the train was being interviewed by somebody, and he was talking about the cruelty of sending people to space, not telling them that they're not coming back.
Right.
Under the pretense that they are going to survive or something like that.
He's like, we will be dust by the time they come back from their mission or something to that effect. So yeah, directed by Claire Denis. She's a French director. This is her first English film. I guess she had this idea for like 15 years. And when she conceived of it, she only ever saw it in English. Chinese or Russian was what she said, because when she pictures something happening on a spaceship, it's definitely not French, which I guess is appropriate because I don't think France has its own space program. Maybe they do.
No, they call it a space program, but they just like eat like bagels and baguettes.
Or are they some like New York French people eating bagels?
Croissants, I think they would be eating.
It would be croissants or marrons. Il mange.
Yeah, air mouche.
Il mange.
Right, that's what I said.
Yeah, I guess we should compare synopses real quick or if we have any differing ones.
See if we watch the same movie.
Yeah, because there's a lot going on, and there's a lot that I don't understand.
Well, there's a lot going
From a
on
plot
in
standpoint.
brief windows. A lot of it is kind of the monotony of space, but I feel like
prison.
they tried to fit a lot of explanation into short scenes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like with dialogue, which was sometimes difficult to understand because people did have weird accents and like I feel like there was some strange direction happening in this movie because some of the acting and
It's inconsistent.
yeah,
acting, for
delivery
sure.
was weird.
Like I feel like Robert Patterson. Is it
Patton Cheeks?
Patton Cheeks.
Patton
I
my
feel like his
cheeks.
acting like changed a lot over the course of the movie. Like he developed like some weird accent at the end and was just I don't know.
I mean, I would say his performance was about the only thing that was like keeping this thing together. But
wow. Okay.
but anyway, we did watch this movie. You've never heard of this movie. I know that you've never heard of this movie.
I hadn't before you mentioned it.
I had seen it on I had seen it on
Perfect sound.
on Amazon Prime, and then I remembered like reading about it that it got decent reviews, and that it was fairly polarizing, where like people either loved it and applauded it or they hated it.
This was a film festival movie, I would think, right?
It was, yeah.
Okay.
So, did you want to give us your synopsis?
No, not anymore. Now that we talked about that, I was recommended it by a friend who was into experimental film.
Like pornography?
That's not experimental. It's pretty.
It can be.
It can be
Sexual experimentation.
the literal experimentation. Yeah.
Have you ever seen
That's
the
not what I
one with
meant
the
though. I didn't
eels?
mean like science. That's not really experimental though.
With the eels?
The anime, the hentai,
No, I've seen it in live action.
real eels.
Yeah.
Reels.
Yeah. It's like that scene in Indiana Jones Temple of Doom when they cut open the snake at the like Indian dinner and all the snakes pour out.
Yeah. Or the thing.
Gross.
Yeah.
The thing with its like.
Yeah, kind of like that too.
But he's like Sans Soleil, which is like a sort of documentary that this guy traveling across the world, or mainly Europe, but he turns like just random images into a story and then makes a film based on the random images that.
He said that for him it was the image of happiness, and also that he had tried several times to link it to other images, but it never worked. He wrote me, "One day I'll have to put it all alone at the beginning of a film, with a long piece of black leader. If they don't see happiness in the picture, at least they'll see the black."
That's who recommended it to me. Some guy who likes movies like that.
Makes sense, and would have been
Yeah.
a very like crucial detail to have provided us before we watched this movie.
Well, then you wouldn't have watched it. You'd be like, "Oh, I want to watch fucking a children's sports movie,"
You wanted to watch Little Giants.
because you.
Anyway,
Addison, you had a bad view of this movie going into it because you read a bunch of like what was it?
I read interviews.
Audience reviews.
Well, yeah,
right?
I did read some audience reviews from IMDb, which were pretty funny. Like, people hate this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Hate it. But then I was also reading some interviews with Claire Denis where she was talking about some of the like themes of the movie, and I didn't get a sense from reading it that she knows what this movie's about.
What did she say?
Yeah, what'd
Well,
she say?
she talked about like, and this was something obviously that I saw too watching it, but she kept talking about fluids and like how fluids run our life and
Well, okay, that's interesting
yeah, and
because that's how they control the prisoners.
right. Like, this movie focuses a lot on it's very kind of like Freudian. It focuses a lot on like the retention of fluids, the release of fluids, the different consequences and results that come from those things.
Well,
Like,
Robert Pattinson's his character. Once we learn about the backstory, he doesn't want to release his fluids for these baby experiments where they're trying to get. This one woman is trying to get babies impregnated into little women.
She's basically like performing.
They
like,
are really small.
Jeffrey Epstein, 4 stars out of 4.
Yeah. You made that joke earlier. You did.
I did, but it wasn't on film.
wanted to get that on record.
I did.
She's mine. I'm hers.
Yeah. So there's the retention of fluids where he's like, I am being abstinent because that makes me stronger.
The release of fluids.
And it's like an act of rebellion for him
Yeah.
because he didn't want to submit to her experiment.
Right. once he found out that like basically what they were on was a suicide mission. I guess spoilers. Like we might as well just talk openly about this movie.
Yeah, I'm not worried about spoilers.
So if you are gonna see this, maybe stop here until you watch it. Anyway, so it's this weird experiment. She wants to. They want to see, I guess, if like humans can be born in space. Probably
there's
because
a problem
we're
with radiation.
Yeah, so there's this problem with radiation they're trying to work out. I'm guessing that's because something is fucked back on Earth, and so the plan is ultimately to move humanity to space or something.
Mm-hmm.
And
pretty bare bones.
It's pretty bare bones. And then they're all criminals, so they all end up misbehaving and raping and killing and fighting. And so eventually just ends up with Robert Pattinson being on the ship alone with his infant daughter, who is the product of Juliette Pinochet or whatever, raping him in the middle of the night, stealing his semen and impregnating while he's drugged up and impregnating another prisoner.
They're all drugged up at the time.
They were all drugged up at the time. The prisoner who subsequently, after giving birth, hurls herself into a black hole and her fucking head explodes inside of her
after she
space
just
helmet.
carves up another lady's head.
This is like spade. This is like one of the climaxes of the movie.
One of several.
Oh, nice. Sex.
Fuck box.
Yeah, we should talk about that too. But it's interesting because it starts with Robert Pattinson like engaging with this baby. There's very limited information. We don't know what's going on. We're assuming they're in space, but as we pointed out, the logic of gravity doesn't really make sense when he's like working outside on like a panel on the spaceship and he drops his wrench.
And it just drops like a rock.
It drops probably heavier than most normal things in like our gravity would drop. So that was weird. And you're not like quite sure where you're at. So there's a lot of like just sitting in like these open spaces, these really long shots long shots where you're just like holding them like where they're like he's just looking at a child for a long time.
That would be a long take then. Long shot.
That long take is like that.
No, take is like a scene. A shot would be.
No, because you go from shot to shot to shot. It's long shot is time.
But a take is like
a long
scene.
You're taking away.
Oh my god.
It's a long take. It's fine.
Whatever.
We'll put the definition right here. It's fine.
Right here?
Or up here.
Oh, right there.
I can't shake this feeling that we know each other.
We do.
We do?
Picture me, I guess, maybe like 20 years younger, but like this.
Flarsky?
Yeah!
What are you doing these days?
I'm a journalist.
You're a great writer, but sometimes you're a little too much.
I don't think I am too much. I actually think I'm the perfect right portion.
Okay.
Was that the only theme that she talked about in that interview was fluids?
Well, I think it's just that... Yes, and about weird sexuality. And then she talked a lot about Robert Pattinson. So actually, she had written this with Philip Seymour Hoffman in mind as the lead. And of course, he fucking killed himself with heroin. So she couldn't. Yikes. And then Robert Pattinson was kind of persistent and just wanted to be in it. And then she was like, I got this vibe from him of like pure virginity, and and the women, they loved him, and
they do.
They do, which is I'm pretty sure that's everyone who hates this movie on IMDb is like the 18-year-old Twilight. Yeah,
They've grown up and they want to just flick the bean to any movie that he's in.
All of a sudden, there's just breast milk just squirting all over the place. In one of the scenes. I'm sure that was a turning point for a lot of the Twilight viewers.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, that's like the end of the movie.
You mean, was that before or after the shot of the semen slowly dripping down the inside?
After.
Okay, that was after. Okay.
Fluids are very present in this movie. I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, like the fluid of the drugs that she puts in the thing, and then the black water, the gray water, the white water, this recirculation of water that they're doing, blood, semen. Yeah. I mean, literally every human fluid that you can spit, foaming at the mouth, like every human fluid you can conceive
titty
of.
Milk.
And some sweet titty milk,
and some pee, some baby pee, some human pee,
titty juice. And PP, yeah.
PP poo poo.
So it's like, yeah, like, what is she trying to say? I'm not 100% certain. There's definitely like an exploration or examination of what it means to be human with this. And
the physical body.
Yeah, the physical body, like what it means to have a body, and how does that control or perhaps inhibit our interaction with the world and the people around us because we're in this sack of meat that has all of these things excreting all the time and all of these physical needs.
Speak for yourself, buddy. All right.
Let's just say I secrete on the daily, dog.
A
all right.
very dainty fluid excretion.
This mission can't turn our shame into some type of glory. I can't do this flying around no more.
You lied to us. You knew it.
A theme that I want to talk about is, so it seems like a poor plan to put all these killers on a spaceship together. The captain is seemingly the worst criminal, which she admits later on that she killed her whole family, and they're just like, you're the captain. And then
look at me. Well, actually, she wasn't the
captain.
Original captain. It was the other guy who, so it was the guy who was like, suck my dick when he was on his deathbed. He was the original captain. And he got leukemia from the radiation.
And then she was just like the staff scientist, I guess.
Yes,
okay.
And so when he was dying, you remember that scene when she cuts open his finger and takes the pellet out?
Yeah.
And then she puts it in her finger, so then now she's the captain. She can control like the life support systems. And
keep it
Look
going.
at me. I'm the captain.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. We were there together.
I know.
But it just seems like
before she walked out into space too, she cut the pellet out, put it there so that Robert
he could do
Pat
it.
Cheeks could go and captain the ship.
So it seems like they did, like, all these people are killers, and then in the prison they had like a volunteer system of who wanted to go to space.
Yeah.
And when they got into space, like, it seems like their way to control them was that they of course control the fluids like water, which they can add sedatives to when they want to, and then they chain them to bed sometimes as well, and they have gates on basically they sleep in cells, it looked like. But it just was like a poor plan, like, which obviously pans out that way, where they start raping and killing each other. But that, I was really interested in that theme and kind of how half cooked it was.
Yeah, I felt like there was quite a bit of this that was half cooked in terms of like all she did was bring up the idea. There wasn't necessarily a commentary on it. I would say that's pretty much across the board. Like, think what you will of fluids, like, but have you ever thought about it? Let me make a movie about it. Yeah, I mean, you can look at, like, for example, we talked about this a little bit while we were watching, the difference in depiction between the man who rapes the woman, which is, like, violent and loud, cacophonous, screaming, punching, and then when Julia Binoche rapes Robert Pattinson Cheeks, it's all, like, quiet. She's, like, whispering in his ear and, like,
thank you,
and, like, rubbing her titties and her merkin. That was absolutely a merkin. That
derived from pleasure rather than dominance.
Yes,
those are the two different.
Yes, or desire, like
desire versus
dominance versus a desire for dominance.
Okay, desire for pleasure, like the sex was both a tool to get somebody else pregnant, but also for her own pleasure. So duplicitous and manipulative.
And that's because I'm guessing, I'm just thinking about this now, because he was like abstaining and withholding his sexuality from everybody, so that made him maybe more desirable to her.
She says that too. She's like, you want nothing from me.
Yeah, and that's what, and hey, if you're ever wondering,
gotta play hard to get.
That's the secret.
Gentlemen, to be more charismatic, don't be attracted to women.
Yes.
Hold it in.
Hold it in.
First step, look like Robert Pattinson.
Yes, that's
and
important.
Then,
it's an easy step.
Play
one.
hard to get.
Yeah.
Robert Pattinson, stop playing hard to get. Let me fuck you.
Let me get your fluids, Robert.
Let me ride you till climax.
The odds are not in our favor. But when my work is accomplished, when perfection is achieved, then what? Fly away? I know I look like a witch.
You're foxy and you know it.
I don't know how much we want to care about, like, the logistics of a prison in space, or like a spaceship.
I'm interested in those power dynamics.
I was wondering just the...
Oh, no, I think I think what you were referring to, and you were about to say it, so I didn't need to explain it, would be the logistics of like how the spacesuit doesn't close in the back, or like
there's just certain things that what's another example?
Another example is just the idea of like this giant fucking floating prison out and
with no systems of like restraint, except for randomly when there is that horrible rape scene with the guy. Like, the two women are somehow like strapped down for some reason.
Some of them are like inexplicably like strapped down while others are let go.
Right.
Like the rapist is like got free roam of the whole cabin, but
and then like Andre 3000, who's in this movie.
Barely.
And Robert Pattinson, Patton Cheeks, they're like somehow are like the arbiters of like control. They're like securing. There's only 2 men. I don't know. The doctor was missing during that scene where there's like this extreme amount of violence. It's like it doesn't. There seems to be some sort of emphasis on it because like we spend time like learning about how these systems work, but then at the same time I don't know how they work, even though we're like kind of being shown different things.
And I kind of get the vibes too that maybe society like put them in that situation as a experiment too. Like it's a social experiment. Like if you put these criminals in a spaceship together, closed atmosphere, can they work together to like survive?
But there's no evidence of that, right?
Well, I think the evidence of that is that there are multiple spaceships that are like this. Like they dock with another spaceship that turns out to just be a bunch of dogs. Like why are there a bunch of dogs on the spaceship? It seems like they're doing experiments.
Yeah, they're doing experiments. I think that might be a little bit more metaphorical in terms of like, look, we had humans on a spaceship and then we had dogs on a spaceship. It's
like the same.
And the result was the same between the two, right? Like a bunch of dead fucking dogs, a couple puppies running around, like they fought, and they ultimately killed each other. Was what I took away from that scene anyway. So yeah, just a commentary again on the base nature of humanity.
But then, more to your point, Jackson, they do have that. They do have the second ship, which implies that there is multiple experimentations, especially the number. But then, like, there's just not enough to connect it. And I mean, there's no real evidence that we're seeing that like they are reporting back and they're getting back information. There's no like person they're trying to like communicate or correspond to. They just have to follow the system
back every day.
Right, they have to travel like light years.
They take years to get there. There's just nothing like coming in, so we don't really know. We do see the thing where they like have to report every day,
and that's how they get their life support system.
Yeah. So it's just...
I thought that was interesting.
It's just not enough. It's all interesting. I just don't understand exactly that part of it, that fabric of the film.
There's a lot of interesting ideas in this movie, but none of them really gel together or cohere into something that
There's
feels...
not a huge payoff.
Yeah, ultimately meaningful or interesting. I mean, like, one thing I was kind of astounded by, this movie has so many... shots or takes or whatever we're calling it this episode. I mean, like, it's 2 hours long, felt easily like an end game length for me. Like it
felt pretty long.
It was pretty long, and so like it is dense and kind of novelistic in the way that it tells the story non-linearly. But I know you love the French New Wave. I know you love all that shit. But for some reason, I feel like this is like a trademark of French cinema, at least in my somewhat limited exposure to it, which is like, it's just kind of too all over the place and too up its own ass to appeal to me all the way. I like the ideas that are present because they're very existential, like maybe a little bit cynical. But as far as being like a fulfilling or... experience, it's just not there for me. I'm not mad that I watched it, but I also don't.
I wasn't satisfied.
I can't say I'm satisfied.
The movie didn't really offer any sort of satisfying ending. It was a lot of just like, different snippets of the experience on this particular spaceship.
Yeah. And then at the end, he takes his daughter, who's now like 13 and has had her menarche, into the black hole. But the black hole looks different now, where instead of being white, like when the mother went in and her head exploded, now it's like kind of golden and yellow.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, like maybe
like a crocodile's eye.
Like a crocodile's eye. Like there's a symbolism in that color usage that like it's going to be different when they go through it. And maybe that's a testament to the idea that you have to have faith and trust in the universe.
That's where he becomes a vampire.
Oh, that's right, because this is the prequel, Twilight.
What's that film? Upstream Color. This film felt like a more incomplete version of Upstream Color.
I want to say yes.
Go in there, just go in there.
For you. I want to.
I haven't slept at all.
Is there a direction that you feel drawn?
I'm going to go wherever you go. You know that.
experimentation, and we have a mystery, and we have very experimental shots and cinematography, and we're not 100% sure what's going on, but the ending is enough that we understand, and there's clarity, and we can go back and rewatch it and have kind of like a real sense of like tangible storyline.
Miss me with that rewatch, dog.
You don't want to rewatch Upstream Color?
I don't want to rewatch either of those.
I've rewatched Upstream Color. It really
helps.
It
Does
really
it?
Helps.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, good things to say about this movie. Like I said, Robert Pattinson's performance is really good in it, I thought, anyway, and I thought he held the movie together. Cinematography's great, lighting is great. Like, there's a lot of artistry on display here. This is clearly not this woman's first film, right? Like, you can tell that. But it just didn't quite cohere well enough for me.
My last question is why? What was his crime? Did he murder that woman?
I think he murdered that little girl, and he must have killed the dog, got a taste for violence, and then killed the little girl. That's what I. And you know what? Actually, I think I remember reading something about that in an interview. That he killed that girl.
Robert Pattinson killed that girl.
Yeah.
Why would he kill the girl? Just because he's psycho?
I guess.
I mean, he's pretty violent in the movie too. I mean, he's hitting women and like he beat the shit out of that one guy. Like even though it wasn't out of self-defense. It was just like, I'm gonna keep hitting him in the face.
Mm-hmm. I guess one of the first scenes we have of him on the spaceship is beating the crap out of his future baby mama because she's just like kind of like scratching things on the wall.
Yes, and then they like just like kind of like hold hands and play with each other's blood.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah,
there's just interesting direction. It's either above my head or it's not good. I think it's above my head. I think it's a good movie. I just think it needs more time for me to process.
What, you guys can't appreciate French cinema?
I feel like I appreciate it more than you guys.
I appreciate it more than you guys.
I eat my bagel and I watch the French cinema.
I have my French press and I press the coffee.
You realize nothing is ever gonna grow inside us.
Break the laws of nature. You'll pay for it.
So, I don't know. Would you recommend this movie?
If you are a big Twilight fan,
if you're hungry for more Twilight, you want to know a little bit more about Edward's backstory.
Get that lore in there, absolutely, absolutely. If you, I'm not upset I watched this movie. I didn't like it, but if you want to see kind of like a space flick, indie space flick, go for it.
Indie space flick.
Yeah, I mean, I thought a lot about movies that I liked a lot better than this one while I was watching it, Moon and Solaris and hell, even Event Horizon. Lawrence Fishburne.
What's that? Wait, is it Solaris where they go to the sun?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
And then there's Sunshine too.
Sunshine, that's what I'm thinking
which is Danny Boyle with
Danny
Boyle. Not Ciaran Hinds. What's his name?
That's a horror film, right? Or is that Solaris?
No, it's Sunshine's horror-ish, but I honestly wouldn't. I think that's how it was marketed, but I wouldn't consider it that way.
Well,
Solaris
like how
is Steven
Moon
Soderbergh.
is horror.
Yeah.
Because that's under the category of horror.
Oh, okay. And I mean, I guess psychological horror, the horror of isolation.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of this reminded me of, and I guess many. How about you? Would you recommend it?
No, you go first. I'm curious.
As I said, I didn't hate the movie really at any point. Was never in love or enamored with it. Not really mad that I spent 2 hours watching it. But ultimately can't find too many reasons to recommend it. If you are like a hardcore film buff and you enjoy watching alternative films, then yeah, sure, take a look. You'll probably think about a few things, but if you are glad that Avengers Endgame recently surpassed Avatar for the highest grossing film of all time, don't watch this movie because you'll hate it.
Yeah, if you're stoked after what Marvel released at Comic-Con, then you're gonna love this movie. I recommend it. I think it's worth a watch. The artistry's there. It's not a movie that's like made by an incompetent person.
Plus, you're a sexual deviant.
Loves fluids.
Yeah.
Plus, it's
guy.
It's better to have like a healthy like desire for people's fluids.
Want that titty
That'll help
milk.
make this movie more enjoyable.
Yeah. Delicious. Okay. Well, thanks for watching. Please email us.
Nope.
Like and subscribe.
Send us money.
Yeah, give us money. Fuck.
What the fuck? Okie dokie. Smoky. Artichokey. Blokey. Croaky. You shut the fuck up.
Jeez, man.
The prequel to Twilight High Life.
Twilight.